Now, I don't know if I've seen two phones that have this much in common or look as similar as the Galaxy A54 5G and the S23 FE. In fact, just glancing at them, it's kind of hard to tell them apart. But what's the difference and which one is the better option? This one might actually be a little tougher than I thought. So let's go ahead and get started. Interesting enough, I think I paid about the same amount for both phones, although the S23 FE was on sale and the A54 was at full price. Normally, the A54 5G is $449 versus $629 for the S23 FE, but if you know Samsung, it shouldn't be hard to find them on sale again. You are going to get more color options for the S23 FE, and the A54 only comes with 128 gigabytes of storage in the United States, but you get 128 or 256 for the S23 FE. One advantage for the A54 is you can expand the storage with a micro SD card, where you don't get that option with the S23 FE. Both phones are similar in size and weight, only about 7 grams heavier for the S23 FE. But both come with a 6.4-inch display with 1080 by 2340 resolution. The A54 is Super AMOLED and the S23 FE is Dynamic AMOLED 2X. They both have up to 120 Hz refresh rate, and while the S23 FE screen has a brighter peak brightness, just using them on default settings next to each other, I don't think most people are going to notice a huge difference. Maybe a little brighter in certain situations for the S23, but both have good contrast, nice viewing angles, and they both look pretty nice in person in my opinion. So I don't think you can go wrong with either one as far as the screen quality goes, even if the S23 FE is slightly better. Now, surprisingly, kind of a big difference is going to be the battery life. The S23 FE has a 4500 milliamp hour battery versus a 5000 milliamp hour in the A54. I ran my typical battery drain test on both, and the A54 lasted about 4 hours longer, 15 hours, and only 11 hours for the S23 FE. Now, keep in mind, this is more of an extreme use test, and there's a lot of variables with battery life. One advantage for the S23 FE, you've got wireless charging, where you don't get that with the A54. But in my testing, if you want the phone with better battery life, you'll want to go with the A54 5G. Software-wise, you get pretty much an identical experience with these two. The A54 has recently been updated to Android 14 One UI 6.0 versus Android 13 One UI 5.1 on the S23 FE. But to me, it's just small differences like the newly designed notification shade, where things are more in groups now, but are still going to work in a similar way as before. You've also got the Google Discover newsfeed or Samsung News left of the home screen for both. You've got the Edge panel over on the side where you can add shortcuts. You also have a fingerprint scanner in about the same spot built into the screen for both phones, and they seem to be pretty reliable on both. I actually like how Samsung does it better than on some of the Pixel phones I've tested, so you can't go wrong with either as far as software goes. I would expect the S23 FE to be updated before too long here, and then they'll be even closer. Since they both came out the same year, I would expect them to get about the same amount of software updates as well. One advantage you have with the S23 FE is you've got Samsung DeX, so you can connect this to an external monitor or TV and be a little more productive. It sort of makes it feel like you're using a regular PC, except it's powered by your cell phone. That's something you don't get with the Galaxy A54 5G. One difference between these two is going to be the performance. The S23 FE, you've got an Exynos 2200 versus an Exynos 1380 in the A54. The A54 also has 6 gigabytes of RAM versus 8 with the S23 FE. I believe there's an 8 gigabyte version for the A54 in other countries with more storage, but not in the United States, unfortunately. You can see by the Geekbench scores, the S23 FE is better on single core and quite a bit better on multi-core scores. The FE is also about double the GPU score of the A54. So not a huge surprise, but the S23 FE is going to have better performance than the A54. So you'll be able to load things a little faster. You'll have better graphics and frame rates. When it comes to gaming, I feel like the A54 does a decent job overall. It may just come down to if you need the extra performance of the S23 FE. I know for me, I usually want more than I actually need, but again, probably going to be personal preference. As far as the speakers go, they both seem to be loud enough in my opinion. Neither is going to be the loudest out there, but the S23 FE appears to be a tad bit louder overall. Here's a quick sample of each just to give you an idea of what to expect.
Try to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away as you fade away. As you fade away. As you fade away. As you fade away.
One advantage you get with the S23 FE is the camera and video quality. You get a 50 megapixel main lens on the back of both, 12 megapixel ultra wide and 5 megapixel macro on the A54 versus an 8 megapixel telephoto and 12 megapixel ultra wide on the S23 FE. So sort of personal preference there, but I would lean towards the FE. You also get a little better quality on the front facing camera for the S23 FE, plus you can shoot up to 4K 60 frames per second versus only 4K at 30 frames per second for the A54 when it comes to video recording. Here's a quick sample of each just to give you an idea of what to expect. I think overall both cameras are pretty good quality, but if you want the phone with a little better camera and video quality, you'll want to go with the S23 FE. Again, I don't know if I've seen two phones that are this similar in a while, and hopefully this video made things a little less confusing between the two. I really like the design of these, much better than the previous design, but there's probably a couple categories which would make me choose one over the other. But for most people, I think it's going to be personal preference and what kind of deals you can find. But if you like phone and tablet comparisons, I've got a lot more that I'm working on, so you'll want to keep an eye out for those upcoming videos. So if you've made it this far into the video, you may want to say thanks by subscribing, and don't forget to give a thumbs up if this video was helpful. This is Brian from Fishbee Productions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.